Hello everybody, Anne here. I am so excited to be back for a new watercolor video, and this is going to be really special because I am going to discover live 4 new paints I never painted with before, so I am thrilled about it. I hope you are as well. These are 4 different pigments from 3 different brands that I am going to test for the first time, sharing with you my first impressions, making swatches and comparing them with other paints I have already in my palette. And this is part of my mini palette special project, which is about, painting with a limited palette, restricted colors, and see what happens. And I am so excited that this is a collaborative project, a community thing, as I am going to send to my Patreon that join my Rabbit Artsy Pack team the exact same limited palette so that we can paint together with the same paints and having kind of a nice online watercolor workshop every 2 months. So if you like the idea of getting this very same limited palette in the mail and of painting along with me with the same paints during the upcoming weeks, feel free to join my Artsy Pack on Patreon. And so about this first mini palette, it's called Autumn Glow, and I tried to find some colors that could be just perfect to paint during fall, so especially delicious warm colors, but not only. And also please note that my limited palette won't necessarily include the 3 primaries, and this one doesn't, so it will be interesting to see in the mix how I handle a palette which doesn't include its primaries. So let's start with the first pigment, and of course to depict fall and painting gorgeous leaves and nice fall atmospheres and landscape, I couldn't do without an orange paint, and I decided for this orange paint to try for the first time Lukas Watercolor. For now my favorite orange is a transparent orange by Schminke, so we'll see what happens when I paint this one and if I like it as much as the other one. And also people were asking to me, did you already try the Lukas paint and everything, so this is the perfect occasion to do so. Woo, excited! So my mini palette is ready, and let's go with this Lukas Permanent Orange. So it seems to be a nice color from the tube, so it will be interesting to see how it goes. So when I'm doing swatches, I like to have kind of a strong pigment a bit in a corner to have a bit of the full strength, like in here, and then to have it more diluted and to play with it just aside. Yeah, it seems to be a really lovely hue. Lukas is quite of an affordable brand, so it could be really interesting, if the paints are good quality and nice hues, and if they react well and mix well with the other paints, because yeah, it can be a good bargain. If I want to compare it with the transparent orange by Schminke that I was talking about, so this one is still the Lukas paint, and here is how it looks beside the Auradam transparent orange by Schminke. So my first impression is that they are pretty similar in hue and in effect, which is amazing! Woohoo! My favorite orange again! Woo! The second paint I chose for my mini palette, so that it doesn't include only warm colors, was a green, because there's still a bit of green in the leaves and trees, during fall. And a few years ago, when I bought and tried the Daniel Smith dot cards, I remember that I was quite interested in the effect created by Jadeite, oh, Jadeite Genuine. I remember that it kind of creates some dark sparkles in the green wash, and I found it really interesting. At the time I chose the Green Apatite Genuine because the color was warmer, and it's a hue I prefer for greenery, but I always remember that I would like to one day buy one of these tubes and try the Jadeite. And you'll see in the mix that even if this is a bit in my taste, maybe two green colors, if I trust the impression that I got when doing the swatch from the dot card, I think it would be really nice to use it along with the other warm color in order to shift its hue. More about this later. So here it is, the Jadeite. So it looks really dark when in the tube, which is nice because I want to have a dark enough paint, you know, in my palette, so this could work probably for the dark. The interesting thing is I tried them on dot card, but on the dot card is dry. And in here I have the real juicy, nice, genuine rock pigment from Jadeite. This is so exciting. So I'm going to put the stronger paint on the outside corner, like in here, so you can tell indeed that the paint can be really dark and that it becomes green, of course, when diluted. And I will have to use it with enough water and making move out on the paper and using a natural brush and also a paper with a bit of grain in order to get its essence. So I am making a paper move in order to encourage the granulation. You can drop a bit of water, or you can also put more pigment wet in wet. Because I want to be able to see a bit more how the paint will look like, you know, used in a bigger area. I'm going to start painting one of my leaves. Rather than painting only swatches on the page, I drew some leaf silhouette on my sketchbook, so feel free to do the same if you think it can be inspiring. I just search, you know, leaves silhouette on Google, and it can inspire you to make just a simple outlines like this. So maybe I could wet the paper and drop some Jadeite. Look how it, you know, reacts. It's so fascinating. So you really have to use enough water so that it's shiny, it creates some puddle, and the paint moves on the paper. If you see that when slanting your sketchbook, the paint is not dripping and moving, put more water. More water, more pigment. It's a bit of the thing I'm always talking about during my workshop. I am so looking forward that COVID-19 is over to be able to make workshops again. So I'm painting this leaf with only Jadeite genuine, and you can tell that it's really strong straight from the tube like this when I just put the paint on the paper, but you can also swirl your paint on the palette, you know, to mix it a bit with the water on your brush and having it slightly more subtle. In here it starts making its magic with some really dark granulation in the green wash. Woo! Look at that in here! Because I talked about green apatite genuine, if we wanted to compare the hue of Jadeite with the green apatite genuine, so this one is really kind of leaf green, and here is how the green apatite looks. You will be able to tell that the hue is really different, and this green is really more yellowish. And also the granulation will be different. On the green apatite it's more kind of a brownish granulation, whereas on the Jadeite the granulation is more like black. Then to be sure to get really nice warm tones in my paintings, I included a yellow as well. So this is from the French brand Sennelier, and the yellow I'm using usually is a Sennelier yellow light, so that's why I decided this time to try the Indian yellow. It seems to be a warmer color, so maybe closer to quinacridone gold, and so because I'm using the quinacridone gold from Dane Smith, it's going to be interesting to compare this hue with the Sennelier yellow light I am usually using, and also the green gold, and to see if I really like this new pigment. So here am I with this Indian yellow. So it still looks yellow in the tube. I was wondering if it would look more brown, because for example usually Daniel Smith paints, even the yellow one look quite brown. Yeah, this palette starts looking really nice. Come in here, gorgeous pigment. So it's a nice kind of yolk color. So indeed It seems to be, you know, a bit more orange, a bit warmer than my usual Sennelier yellow light. I wouldn't say it looks like quinacridone gold either, because it still looks more yellow. I'm going to make the comparing swatches. But here is already how the Indian yellow by Cinelli looks. I'm going to do it again in here. So if I compare it with the Sennelier yellow light, it's slightly different, as I said. If one day I think, you know, my Sennelier yellow light is a bit too cool, I think this Indian yellow could be a nice alternative. And if compared with the quinacridone gold, so I'm picking straight in the tube. Like I said, you know, this looks more brown when it's strong, and then diluted it will appear yellow-orange. Yeah, I am picking in the tube in order to be sure that I don't show you contaminated pigment. And so, indeed, maybe the Indian yellow is brighter than the quinacridone gold, but I have to see a bit how it looks once dried. So for now we included 2 smooth color and 1 more granulating or sedimentation effect. So for the last colors I decided to have fun as well with really nice, interesting effects. So this is a Daniel Smith Rose of Ultramarine, and maybe with a hue that will be surprising for a fall palette. The paint is a mix of red and blue, which creates some kind of blue and purplish or pinkish variations. So I think it can be nice to give a dimension to our subject and to create really easily some nice colorful granulation that can be interesting. So the fun fact about this palette is that the only blue included in this mini palette with these 4 paints is the blue included in this Rose of Ultramarine. Isn't it fun? So I'm looking forward to adding this Rose of Ultramarine on my palette. So it looks kind of a dark purple from the tube. Yummy! And so the name is Rose of Ultramarine, but it means rose and blue together. So the resulting color is purple, which is a more original choice than if I had adding a red to this autumn or fall palette. So it could be quite strong, and then we'll try to make the granulation appear, you know, to figure out how it is once diluted. I think the hue is quite nice already. It's not so easy to get a nice purple paint. Mine is by Cinelli as well. Maybe I can compare their hue. But this one is going to granulate and the pigments are going to separate. So probably the color will be different at the end. Going to make my comparing swatch in here. And also adding a bit more water. Hey! Just when I added the water, I don't know if you could tell, I could see the ultramarine appearing in here. Can you see a bit of the bluish shade? And so let's compare it with the purple I am using usually, which is Cobalt Violet Deep Hue by Sennelier. So the Cobalt Violet Deep Hue is more like you know, the bluish purple or maybe neutral, whereas Rose of Ultramarine is still a bit more pinkish. Woo! I already love this project so much, and I am so happy with the colors I chose for this first mini palette. Within a few days I am going to upload another video about color mixing, how to find the right mix with some pigment you have, and you'll see the gorgeous, nice, amazing mixes that I found with this new pigment. And if you're interested in getting in the mail the Autumn Glow mini palette that I created, along with all the nice creative stuff, feel free to join the Arty Pack on Patreon before September 30. And in the future I'm going to create a mini palette every 2 months in order to be able to paint with you and discovering pigments together. So yeah, this is so much fun. Thank you so much for following the White Rabbit of creativity with me. See you soon and happy painting!